All right, welcome back everyone to the Texas A&M Dermatology Interest Group YouTube page where we are housing our residency program series podcast. I'm very excited today to be interviewing Dr. Amy Lee Martin. She's a PGY3 at Loma University. We're very excited to have you here, Amy.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here and also really excited to share more about my program, which I love. And I just wanted to start off with a little disclaimer that all of everything that is going to be said in this interview is my own personal thoughts and opinions, and they do not represent Loma Linda University or Loma Linda University GME. And with that said, I'll just go ahead and I can introduce myself a little bit more. I grew up in Ontario, California, which for those of you who are not so familiar with Southern California, it is a little suburb about an hour out from Los Angeles, and we do have a little airport that people might have flown into. I went to a local state school called Cal State San Bernardino, which is around 30 minutes away from Ontario. And that is actually where I met my husband, who is also in medicine. And for medical school, we both went to UC Riverside, which is another kind of state school in Southern California, also 30 minutes away from Ontario. And then for my intern year, I went to Riverside Community Hospital where I did their transitional year program. I did forget to mention that in between medical school, kind of during that period, I did do a research year between my third and my fourth year. And I did that with Dr. Jason Wu primarily. And I did work a little bit with some of the UC Irvine faculty here and there during that year as well. And then currently I am a PGY3 at Loma University Dermatology Residency.
Awesome. I love that you just like you own that area. It's like this is my area. I'm born and raised and I'm gonna, just go through every university. That's awesome. And, it'll be great for your patients too one day that, it's your community and your people. So that's awesome. Okay, so thanks for telling us just the general introduction. Tell us a little bit about your interests both within dermatology and outside of dermatology.
Absolutely. So I'll start off with the fun one, which is my interest outside of dermatology. I am very social. I love hanging out with people. So to me, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm kind of just experiencing things with people that I care about. That being said, I do enjoy eating with people, playing games. To be a little healthy, I do like to hike sometimes, and go to the gym when I can. And I do like to bake. Sometimes during my medical career, I really haven't had time, but when I do have the opportunity, it's something that's really fun for me to do. Um,
Awesome.
and then I guess moving into interest in dermatology, I love everything. I think that coming into residency, I had a lot of just research experience with like chronic inflammatory skin diseases like psoriasis and atopic derm, which are still very dear to me. Um, Kind of at the tail end of my research here, I realized that I was very passionate about genital dermatology and vulvar dermatoses. And so I still continue to nurture that interest. Um, I do love peds as well. I don't think I'm going to be doing a fellowship in it, but it is something that I definitely get excited to see all the little kiddos when they come in.
Awesome. Okay. Um, Honestly, you're in the perfect place for hiking, I feel like. So many mountains, the beach, it's just pristine area for hiking. Okay, so let's learn about Loma Linda. So give us kind of the bird's eye view first. Where you are, you said about an hour outside of Los Angeles, just like the clinic sites, the hospitals you go to, how many residents per year, just kind of a bird's eye view to start off.
Absolutely. So we primarily spend most of our time at our main clinic that we call Meridian. That is around a 5 minute drive from like the big medical center. We have some other Loma Linda affiliated clinics around us, but we're kind of like in a shopping center. It might not be exactly where you would picture that our clinic would be, but it is actually quite lovely. There's no issues with parking. There's a McDonald's nearby. What could be better than that? And a Walmart. If you need to go grocery shopping during lunch, sold. Okay, so we spend most of our time there, and it's, Monday through Friday, like classic dermatology residency. And we also do spend some time at a county hospital, Riverside University Health System. We do that for 4 months, our first and second year of residency, and you're there with a buddy. So it's really nice. You get to know that person really well. In addition, during our first year, we do spend some time at another safety net clinic called SACS, which is around 15 minutes away from our main clinic, so not far at all. And that's usually just Friday mornings. I would say 3 out of the 4. Um, Actually, I don't even know if it's that frequent. So, kind of a handful of Fridays, we will go to that safety net clinic as a first year only. And then as a second and a third year, we don't go there. And then we also sometimes go to this clinic called Highland Springs, which is in Beaumont, which is around 30 minutes more east of our main clinic. I don't know, people might know, I didn't realize there's a super popular pumpkin patch in Redlands called Live Oak. Anyways, I was just going to say you pass Live Oak on your way to going to that Beaumont
Okay.
clinic. And that's just a half day, certain Mondays during certain months of your first year. So we're not even out there that frequently. But it is great because there's a really underserved patient population there. There's a big retirement community, and I can't believe how many melanomas like we've come across in that clinic. So that's really cool. I'm trying to think, I'm sorry, can you redirect me towards any other
Yes.
information you want
No,
about it?
this has been great. And I'm going to remember that pumpkin patch too. So next time I'm in Redlands, California, I'm going to this pumpkin patch.
It's like crazy. There's like 3 different parking lots. There's a charter bus from the satellite parking lots just to get into the pumpkin patch.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's so fun. And we're in October, so I'm kind of in the mood for, for a pumpkin patch too. But just the end of that question is just how many residents you have per class and then how many faculty you have too.
Absolutely. So we have 3 residents each year, and we also have one Mohs fellow. Additionally, I think we're at about 9 faculty right now. We just had 2 new faculty members who joined us, and they're amazing. Um, One of our faculty members, our Peds Derm faculty, she's there 1 day a week. And then we have another faculty member who just is at our RUHS site and doesn't come over to like the main clinic site. She also helps out at that sex clinic that we talked about too.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Loma Linda as a whole, is there a medical school that is affiliated with you guys? Are you part of a bigger system?
Yeah, so there is Loma Linda University, which has a medical school. And so we are affiliated with that kind of medical school.
Okay, so you also have an undergrad presence there as well.
That's a great question. We have other like healthcare programs like physician assistant. There's like a dental program there, a pharmacy program there. But as far as there being like an undergraduate institute, I'm not entirely familiar with that. But I do know that there are other schools apart from the medical school.
Okay, awesome. It's kind of fun, honestly, being in a city that has so many like PAs and,
Yeah.
phlebotomy and nursing, and it's kind of like the medicine runs the city. It's kind of nice. So we already talked about how you have a Mohs fellow, so you have a Mohs fellowship. Do you have any research fellowships, like particularly for students who want to do a research year as a gap year?
We currently don't. Our faculty are very supportive if there are people who are interested in research. They will do everything they can to try to help you to pursue that. But I don't believe any of our faculty currently have like any research students that they take.
Okay.
So.
All right. Next question. I feel you're the best person to ask since you did a research year, but how does the program view people who did research years or a PhD? And what does the landscape look like? Are all the residents people who did research years? Is it a minority of residents? What does it look like at Loma Linda?
That's a great question. I don't feel like our program has a strong preference either way. I think if you did one, it's like great. If you didn't do one, also totally okay. I think it's a good mix. So within the class above me, I think that only one out of the three did a research year. My year, two out of the three. And then I think the class underneath, they all ended up doing research years. But I just think that's kind of how it ended up panning out. Because it doesn't really, seem to me to be something that is of particular importance. I think we're really good about trying to um, look at fit and look at candidates from a really global perspective. And there's not like one thing that, somebody has or doesn't have that will make us feel strongly one way or another. Um, I do feel like the whole kind of question of should I do researcher or not do researcher is really person dependent, and it depends on your like circumstance and your situation. Mine, I don't know if I would have done a research year if like the pandemic had just hit. Because the pandemic had just hit, I literally had zero opportunity so I don't have a home dermatology. I didn't have a home dermatology program at UC Riverside, and they still don't. And I didn't have any opportunity to rotate through derm. So my only opportunity to decide if I was gonna like the field or not was to do research year. And then in addition to that, my partner we were the same year in medical school. And so I just wanted to kind of see where he ended up first. And then that was going to kind of help me. So it just made sense for me to take the research year at that point. But a lot of the programs that, I ended up being really interested in are not super research heavy. And I think that sometimes people don't always know what programs they're going to be interested in when they're like a third or a fourth year, and they don't always know which programs are super research heavy or not. But I would say that that should also maybe come into play about whether somebody decides to do a research year or not. And I also think like I would recommend that if you really don't like research, I would try to like avoid putting yourself in a situation where that's going to be something that's like heavily emphasized for you, just because there are definitely I feel like a good handful of derm programs that's not a huge emphasis for them.
Okay. That's good to know. Um, Speaking of other people that are reviewed with applications, and sometimes this question I feel is hard for residents to answer because it's hard to know people who aren't in your cohort. But if you do you know if Loma Linda Durham is open to accepting DO students or IMG students?
I think so. I don't know if like the exact breakdown of like MD versus DO versus like IMG for the past. We one of our new faculty members is, she graduated from a DO institution, which is awesome and amazing. So, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be. I just don't know any individuals who are DO or IMG from my program off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So we'll go now into another group of students that are considered during application season, and that's away rotators. A question that a lot of students have is, are away rotators guaranteed interviews?
That's a great question. I think it is very, very helpful, especially because it's a great opportunity for us to get to know each other better and to see if we'll be a great fit for each other. I don't think that it necessarily guarantees an interview. I think it definitely helps a ton, but it's not like an absolute.
Okay. Yeah, that's usually what we're hearing now, especially with the signals and stuff too, is it's very helpful, but not necessarily guaranteed most of the time. I guess within your cohort and the people that you know, are you know, you said that it's helpful to have the away rotations, but are most residents there people who did an away rotation, or do non-rotators also get considered equally at the program?
That is a great question. So, like the class above me was right in the heart of COVID. And so I think that only one out of the three had rotated through Loma Linda. My year, all three of us had actually rotated, and my one of my cousins and I had actually met and become friends during our rotation. So that was kind of cool. And then I think our PGY2s, all of them did rotate with Loma Linda as well. But like last year, our Chiefs, I think two out of the three. So it kind of can vary,
Okay.
but definitely helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And just the last question in this section, and then we'll move on to, you know, day-to-day training. Do you know if the program views geographic preference in a certain way? And obviously with ERAS, things are always changing, but typically it's, you know, you preference, I guess you guys are the Pacific West Coast one. You preference that, or you select no preference at all, or somebody who preferences a different region but still applies to Loma Linda outside of their region. So there's a lot of nuances, but do you know generally how Loma Linda perceives geographic preferences?
I don't think there's a big emphasis on it. We definitely have like residents and faculty from all parts of the United States. So I don't think that's really something that is given a big emphasis.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, we'll move towards training. So the fun day-to-day stuff in dermatology. So let's just start off bird's eye view again. Generally, what the structure of the program is. Is it a
Mhm.
block schedule or longitudinal? How long are the blocks? How often are you seeing things? So we'll just start there.
Great. So we actually have a block system, and every block is 4 months. Um, Most of the time, the blocks are all focused still at our main clinic in Meridian, except for there are a block each of your first and second year that you're at RUHS. Now, each of the blocks, they have a slightly different, I would say, emphasis. So, like, for example, the block I'm on now, I think is more of like a surgery emphasis. So I have more surgery time. Also, sometimes they have more of an emphasis with certain attendings. So we'll call it the X, Y, and Z attending block because you're not just with that attending, but you have more clinic time with that attending compared to other attendings. So, for example, you might be with them 3 half days a week. So we call it the Dow block or etc., whatever it is. And additionally, we do have a consult block during your second year where you have the afternoons off to not off, but you're not in clinic because they're dedicated towards seeing and managing our inpatient service. I'm trying to think of other things. All of our blocks, except for I think one of them, you're during your chief year. We have peds derm about 1 half day a week. Sometimes you get even a full day of peds derm. And we have like a good mix of surgery as well as derm path kind of throughout the curriculum all the time. Additionally, once you hit your second year, we get to do cosmetics, and we have like a resident cosmetic day, 1 day a month. And our program director, who's amazing, she gives us like a list of reading materials, and then we come in, we take a quiz, we chat, and then we go and we have our resident, cosmetic clinic with patients. Um, and I think that kind of sums it up, unless you have any kind of specific parts you want me to go into further detail about.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's honestly really nice that there's a general emphasis because, you know, if you're kind of, let's say, on like a surgery, you can still get medical derm sprinkled in here and there, which is kind of nice. Um, okay. Do you guys have electives? Do you get any time for elective experience at all?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know that there have been instances where people do want to, like, if they're applying for fellowships and they want to like audition or go visit somewhere, that has been done for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Um, and I'm not sure exactly like how that time was allocated, if it was like from meeting time or if it was just reallocation of our curriculum, just because I personally haven't done any of those like kind of mini electives, but it's not something that is like built in our curriculum.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
And then speaking of outside types of things, do residents spend time on other services at all, like plastics or internal medicine or anything?
We don't, but we do have a lot of like other people come into our clinic. So like plastic surgery, internal medicine, family medicine will come and rotate with us.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's get into the clinical sites. So you mentioned the Meridian one being the main one, and then the Riverside University hospital system, and then a couple mini clinics outside as well. So we talked about county. Do you guys have a VA that you have to rotate at?
We at one point historically we did, but ever since I've been in the program, we no longer rotate at the VA site.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And then pediatric experience. This is always a question for people. You mentioned a half day in the Meridian Clinic. Do you get exposure to pediatrics at the other sites at all?
So that's a great question. So all of our sites will see children, and all of our attendings are great. But if we ever have like a specific question about peds derm that we want perspective from a pediatric dermatologist, we'll usually kind of reroute the patient to our Meridian clinic with her, or we'll kind of consult with her with the patient's permission. But I feel like as residents, we are very comfortable with peds derm. We get a lot of consistent training with our pediatric dermatologist, and we get lectures, like Kodachrome lectures, that are, to me, amazing. And so even though we don't technically have a pediatric dermatologist at our other sites, I feel like because of the experience and the training we get from her at our main site, we feel very comfortable with the peds patients at the other sites and are still able to learn from the pediatric cases there.
Yeah, that's honestly great just to kind of have everything in one area and be able to route it to a central clinic. What about this just came to mind, but is there a children's hospital? Do you ever get consulted to go to the children's hospital?
We do. Loma Linda is actually, I don't even know if there's another children's hospital in the Inland Empire. I think the next closest is Orange County. So, yeah, growing up in the area, Loma Linda was always known to me for its children's hospital. And I think that's also something I would highlight as being a huge plus is we get great training with our inpatient consults for peds. Like we see lots of first-time diagnosis for EB. We see lots of cool rashes all the time where, we wouldn't necessarily get that experience of being able to diagnose it if we didn't have that children's hospital where we were able to get inpatient consults. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have sites that are very far away? I think we talked about the 30-minute past the pumpkin patch one. Are you driving more than that ever to any clinical sites?
Um, no. So I personally live 35 minutes out from our main clinic site, but by choice because that's where my family lives. But most of our other residents live like right by the clinic, maybe within 5 minutes. And so the farthest drive is that 30 minutes away. And then RUHS is around a 30-minute drive from our main clinic. So, but beyond that, there's nothing longer.
Okay. All right. So we'll get into a double question, which is the age-old question that everyone asks, and it's very subjective to your experience, but I'll ask it since everyone is requesting. But what are the strengths of your program? And then what are the things that the program is improving on?
Sure. I think something that is one of my favorite things is we have a really well-rounded curriculum. So, we start doing surgeries, excisions like day one of residency. We also are able to take Mohs cuts as first years and then more as second years and then as third years. We are able to, get our cosmetic training. And although primarily that occurs during your last 2 years, even as a first year, you get a splash of cosmetics. The fact that we have a constant kind of longitudinal PEDS curriculum every single week with lectures. And then I think for me, derm path is not something that comes easily or came easily. But we have an amazing dermatopathologist who is also a Mohs surgeon, and she just makes pass so easy and the curriculum is so structured. But then on top of that, like we still get some kind of interactive sessions from path trained derm path. And so we feel comfortable enough that we are able to like talk through diagnoses. We have a lot of good med derm not only at our main clinic, but at our UHS, we see such a diverse range of med derm, and the patients are often very advanced. Like we have a lot of advanced HS, a lot of like very extensive BSA psoriasis. We see people from a diverse range of backgrounds, CARP, CCCA, but we also get a lot of good just bread and butter from like acne, rosacea. So I think that is something that is really amazing. There's not any part of derm that I feel like I'm not getting enough training in. And then I would say the other thing that I really like is that we're very close knit. I know some larger programs have multiple sites that you're going to, and you might not get to know your co-residents very well. We see each other almost every day. We have a cute little resident room. We interact with each other a lot. Like we're each other's biggest cheerleaders, biggest supporters. And we're also like very close with our faculty. Like the environment is very supportive, very kind. We like to have a good time. We like to laugh. And so I think that's like a huge plus is like I don't feel stressed out coming to work every day, but I still feel like I'm being pushed to learn as much as I can.
That's awesome. I love that. Especially I love a good resident room. Just a
Yeah.
place that, it's for you guys. You can eat and have make coffee and things like that. It's really fun. And then can you touch a little bit on any areas that the program is making improvements in?
Yeah, so with our two new faculty, I feel like, and then our current faculty, some of them have had adjustments in their schedules because of taking on more like administrative roles. And so I think now we're just trying to kind of tweak and kind of make small adjustments to the schedule to readjust for kind of the changes in our faculty scheduling. Um, and I think too, the other thing that we're trying to work on is more like maybe getting more Codachrome sessions with faculty, um, and things like that, but no like big or major changes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. You touched on this a little bit about surgery experience that you're starting, you can start doing the excisions day one, taking Mohs layers year one, which is awesome, especially with a Mohs fellow present as well. Anything else that we should know about surgery? Because I know you already answered that question, but anything else we should know?
No, I just feel like it's definitely a huge strength, how much like practice and experience that we get. I would say we do about at least one procedure every week, sometimes more. The only exception is at our UHS, you have kind of one procedure day. But because there's two of you there and there's not that much room availability, you might not get to do a procedure every week. But when you're at the main clinic, that's kind of the average. So.
Okay, awesome. And again, we talked about cosmetics and working with the program director, Dr. Luke. Is there any additional training in cosmetics? Like several residents have talked about a friends and family after hours thing. Do you guys offer anything like that as additional training?
Yeah, so our very first year, there's like a friends and family night, and all the senior residents are there, and then all of the first years bring in, family or friend, and the faculty are there, and so that's pretty fun. Um, but I feel like we get a very good amount of cosmetic training during our chief year. We have I think the Chiefs are with Dr. Luke in cosmetic clinic like a few half days per week. So apart from just getting the resident driven cosmetic clinic, you are also with um, Dr. Luke learning cosmetics more during your kind of third year.
Okay. Okay. Let's go into continuity clinic. How often does it happen? And then when do residents start with continuity clinic?
Yeah, I love my continuity clinic. It's one of my favorite days of the week. It's a half day a week. The day that you have it on changes depending on what block you're in. And you start it during your second year. So during your first year, you don't have one, and then the last 2 years you have one. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I feel like they're kind of it's so nice. It's like your first little clinic and it's so special to you and it's great that you guys have a continuity clinic. Um, Next question is about global health opportunities. So, especially I think being part of a larger system, sometimes there are more opportunities than just being an isolated residency program. But tell us if there's any global health opportunities associated with Loma Linda.
You know, I know Loma Linda as a whole has a really big global presence and does a lot of international work. But as far as our program specifically, none that I'm aware of. But I suspect that if any of us had any interest in it, that the faculty would be very supportive in trying to enable that if it could be worked out under kind of the bigger, entity of the university. So.
Okay, awesome. Um, a little circling back a little bit, obviously with continuity clinic, naturally it comes with more autonomy, but what would you say your experience has been with autonomy, even in attending run clinics? How much room do you have a voice on the patient's treatment and plan?
I feel like we have a really good balance here at Loma Linda. And of course, it's like being graduated. When I was first starting out, like you have a lot less experience and a lot more to learn. But I do feel like the attending really tries to take into consideration like our perspective and like what we're telling them and what our plan is. But there's also good oversight. I never feel unsafe or like there's not enough kind of guidance or regulating of what's happening. I feel like we get such great autonomy, like in our continuity clinic, as well as inpatient. Like that is where some of like my most fun and best learning happens. Um, but in general, like I've never felt like I haven't had a voice, and I've never felt like I haven't been playing an important role, even in attending kind of led clinics.
Okay. Um, Last question, and then we'll kind of go into extracurricular stuff like research and community service. But tell us about how call and consult service work. Is there a consult month? And, how often is the call for weekends and evenings? And I'll also add in here, some residents have mentioned e-consults versus actually having to go in. So if you could touch on that a little bit too, that would be great.
Great question. So we have both. We have e-consults, which are taken care of by our chiefs. They rotate every week, it's a different chief. And then we have actual inpatient consults where we go in person. There is somebody who covers Monday through Thursday, and then another person who covers Friday through Sunday. It's primarily first years who are covering weekend call, but I definitely still have some weekend calls the second year. And then it's the second years who are covering the weekday call, and we do it in blocks. So next month, starting in November, I actually have my call block, which means that Monday through Thursday, I am in charge of the pager and inpatient consults for 4 months. And how often is call? So as a first year, I felt like, so you don't actually start call, I think, until like maybe August, September. And you do buddy call first with like a chief resident. And then I felt like it was about every month, like once a month I was on call. Now that I am a second year, I feel like it's kind of like in spurts when I do weekend calls. So, like at the beginning of the year, because the first years don't take, call in July for obvious reasons, I felt like I did like 2 or 3 weekends in July. But then I think the next month, like in August, I had zero call weekends. And then September, I was on twice. And then this month, I have none. And then when I'm on my call block, I have no weekends that I cover because I'm just doing weekday call and you can't do both. But then in the spring, I feel like it's like 2 of the months I have 2 weekend calls, and then the other months I don't have any. So it just goes in spurts, but definitely not bad. It's definitely very doable.
Okay. Okay, that was a very good detailed explanation. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go into research and community service. First question is if there are any requirements, to graduate or every year you have to publish a certain amount. So are there any research requirements?
I think it's strongly encouraged to have like one project a year, but I don't think it's like a hard requirement.
Okay. And then just what the opportunities are. So, again, I feel like it's such a blessing to be part of a big hospital system because you can probably work with other services as well. But generally, what opportunities are there? Is it more case reports or clinical trials or, systematic reviews or just kind of whatever you'd like?
I think we do a lot of case reports and case series. But we have definitely done like reviews as well as like database analyses. Um, we don't have a whole lot of clinical trials going on. I believe we have one clinical trial going on that we sometimes help see patients for with the attending. Um, but the faculty are very supportive. So if there's anything that you wanted to pursue, they would definitely, support you in doing it. But they don't have any like clinical trial stuff going on for the most part.
Okay. And then if you do get a project and you do publish, what is the support like financially for getting grants or traveling to conferences?
Yeah. So I haven't had to worry at all about when there's like a publishing fee in certain journals. It's just been taken care of by somebody, either it's a department or GME. I don't know. I haven't had to pay for it, so that's
Yeah,
great.
it's not
And
me.
yeah, it's not me. And then as far as for conferences, I believe we get it's like a certain amount per year when you're presenting. So I think like it's like X amount of the hotel, and I think it's like X amount of nights, and then there's like X amount of travel expense, like for driving or flight, and then X amount of like food expense. But that's just me kind of roughly estimating. Um, there's definitely support for it financially, but I don't have the specific kind of details off the top of my head.
Okay. So we'll kind of transition into community service now. Um, are residents involved in community service? And I think naturally the thing that comes to people's minds is a free clinic. So is there a free clinic? But also beyond that, some residents have talked about skin cancer screenings, working at food banks and things like that. So what kind of service opportunities are there at Loma Linda?
Yeah, so there is a free clinic that one of our attendings works at with the medical students. Um, There isn't a huge resident presence there, and not because we couldn't go. I'm just not sure why there hasn't been like a big kind of resident presence, but I'm sure if anybody wants to go, they absolutely can. We also have street medicine clinics, which I participated in last year. We haven't had anything set up yet because we work with like our medical students. But those are, events that you can participate in. And then we also have just like general outreach that we're a part of. So for example, me and a few of the residents were going to be working with some kind of kids from the community, with the medical students from UC Riverside to kind of educate about dermatology and skin health. And then we recently did an event where it was an outreach event for medical students from underrepresented groups in medicine to help to support and give more information about competitive specialties like dermatology. I would say we have, maybe once a month or every couple months, there's some opportunity to participate in. It's usually not mandatory. It's kind of whoever wants to can. Um, and if there were any resident who wanted to kind of lead or create more outreach programs, that would absolutely be encouraged.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's go into didactics and preparing for all the exams. Tell us what the didactic structure looks like. Is it morning, lunch, evening? What days of the week? And then while you're on that, if you could let us know if it's resident-led or faculty-led or both.
That's a great question. So majority of our lectures do occur from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, right before clinic starts. But we do have Friday afternoons that we're not in clinic, and those are both lecture time as well as admin time, study time. And our lectures are a mixture of resident-led and faculty-led. Sometimes it's not even always our faculty, it's like guest faculty, which is it's great to see different people's perspectives. Our grand rounds are Wednesday mornings. We do have some like Dr. Luke gives a great like skin of color curriculum. We have lots of good codas with that. Dr. E, she does derm path lectures. That's about almost every Friday, but there's some Fridays we don't have that. And then we also get every month from the path trained Durham Path, we get a lecture via Zoom from them, and it's kind of like an interactive format of unknowns. And that's kind of the main. Oh, I do have to put a plug. We have a really cool surgery curriculum during your second year where we go into the cadaver lab and we get to do like practice flaps, and it's really amazing and very cool. And then we also just go over general anatomy. So I would say that's a huge plus too.
Wow, that's really cool. I haven't heard of that. No, nobody has mentioned that yet in other interviews. So that's actually very cool. Takes you back to first year of med school. Very full circle. Okay, so that's good to know. And then are the lectures on Zoom or are they in person?
Yeah, so there are some lectures that were required to be there in person. A lot of the resident-led lectures are just like you can be on Zoom, you can be in person. So it's a mix. I would say maybe once or twice a week I'm there in person in the morning, and then other days I'm on Zoom. So.
Okay. Okay, awesome. And do you get any protected admin time for studying or for research at all throughout residency?
Yeah, so I would say that like Friday afternoon is what I would consider like dedicated admin and study time. Although there are other kind of sprinkles throughout the rest of the year where you'll just get a random kind of admin study day, which is nice.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's get into the leadership of it all and who is running the ship. So you've talked about Dr. Luke being the program director, but who's your chair? Who's the Mose Fellowship director? And just in general, any other important leaders at Loma Linda Durham that we should know?
Yeah, so Dr. Dow is our chair. He's amazing. He is really supportive of everybody, and patient care is an absolute priority to him. So I feel like he's like a great role model for us, and he's like a make it happen guy. Like, you have an idea, no problem. It hasn't been done before. Like, let's do it. And then additionally, our Mo's Fellowship Program Director is Dr. Chow. And he's actually the individual who created and leads that anatomy session where we then get to go into the cadaver lab. He's awesome. And I'm trying to think, we have Cindy Morrell, who's our amazing program coordinator. She's super organized, keeps us all together. And then Dr. E is, I think she might be the APD of the Mohs Fellowship, but she's definitely one of our Mohs surgeons and kind of spearheads our derm path curriculum. And I'm thinking if there's anybody else. Think that's about it, unless there's anybody you think I missed.
No, I think that's perfect. Honestly, I feel like having a really strong leadership can make or break a derm or a residency in general, and having, a chair and a program director who are get it done people, I think is awesome. So, how are they in, being receptive to feedback? Because I'm sure residents have things they want to change or improve, but it seems like what you were saying about Dr. Dow is they are very receptive. Is that correct?
Yeah, Dr. Luke and Dr. Zhao are very receptive to feedback and they're very approachable. We feel very comfortable coming to Dr. Luke with any kind of concern, personal issues that like my mom got sick last year and she was like very supportive. And so I would say that they're always actively trying to like incorporate our feedback as much as they possibly can.
Okay, awesome. And then tell us a little bit about the interview process with residents. Do they help out with interviewing and match and the rank and all of those things? Is it something that's more, the PGY2s since they'll be the chiefs, or is everybody involved?
Yeah, so the PGY2s have more of a direct role in the selection process and interview process, but I would say all residents are kind of part of the process because we work with everybody who comes through the clinic. So we are able to, participate and give our thoughts, although it's not as direct of a role as when you're a first year.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is the fun stuff now, which is the vibe of the residency and who the residents are. So tell us from your experience how you would describe the culture of the program, generally what the personalities and the interests are like in your cohort.
Yeah, I would say that we like to have a good time. We all have like a good sense of humor and um, I think that's something that makes work really fun. We tend to be laid back, but also very like goal oriented, like let's be efficient, let's try to get clinic done, let's, take care of patient care. And I would say in general, people are very family oriented. Not necessarily that they have, kids or, a big family, but I think in general, the vibe is most of us spend a lot of time with our families.
Okay. That's awesome. I love that. Do you guys spend time outside of the clinic? It sounds like yes, but when you are spending time outside of the clinic and hospital, what do you do for fun? What is there to do in the area, after clinic hours?
Yeah, we love to go out to eat together. But we also like, for example, like I had a 30th birthday party last year and then like a lot of people from the program came or I'm trying to think like weddings are coming up and we'll all go to, so and so's wedding. Um, what else do we do? There are hikes. I have hiked with a few of my co-residents, but I wouldn't say it's like a whole group of us who go and do
Yeah.
that. Um, we've done bowling events, so things like that.
Okay. There was another resident who had mentioned like a resident retreat. Is that something that you guys offer too?
We've been working on it. We just haven't quite worked out the logistics because of call, and there's always somebody who's on
Right.
call. So that's the part that we said we were going to do it last year, and then I think we all forgot. So I'm going to try to follow up on that.
Yeah, well, there was your gentle reminder on the resident
Yes,
retreat.
exactly.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about living in the area. You talked about most people living in Loma Linda, nearby the clinic, and people like you who, due to family or other reasons, live 30 or 40 minutes away. So do most people own a place or rent out a place? What does the kind of financial aspect of living in the Inland Empire look like?
That's a great question. I feel like for the most part, people have rented, but there was a chief last year who like owns a house in the area. One of, some of us have because of partner reason or for other reasons, we have, either own property or rent kind of 30 to 40 minutes more towards LA. Um, but I think it's a good mix.
Okay, awesome. Um, Generally, do you know what the cost of living is like? Like if someone wanted to get a one bedroom apartment in Loma Linda, just in general, how much they would be spending for
I
rent?
would say probably around like 2,000 to 3,000 is the kind of where how rent's going these days.
Okay. And is there a housing stipend at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
You're like, let me know if there is. Okay. Okay, sounds good. So you said there was clinics are kind of spread out. The county hospital is about 30 minutes away. So it sounds like it's necessary to have a car, but does the Inland Empire have like a subway or a bus system or anything?
We don't. So I would say, I mean, unless you like borrow somebody's car or
Yeah.
rent it out, I would say you probably need one.
Yeah, I feel like most places in the US you do need a car. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about family stuff. So, you said you're married. So is it are the residents married mostly? Do they have kids mostly single, or is it a good mix between all three?
I think it's a really good mix. We have all spectrums of people in the program currently, and same kind of with last year. So I think it's pretty consistently like a good spread.
Okay, awesome. And then for the people who want to have kids, do you know what the maternity and paternity leave looks like at the institution?
I don't know the details. I definitely know that it is supported and there are many before currently, not currently, but there are definitely people who have done it, both being the mom and the father. So I don't know like the exact time because I know sometimes it comes into play, like if you have to extend your training, if you're out for more than a certain amount of time. But I don't think there are like any restrictions of like you can't if you need this time medically. I think it would be granted. I just think you might have to make it up later if you've missed more than a certain amount of time.
Okay. And then last question in this set is, what is it like living in Loma Linda? So you mentioned, bigger cities like Riverside being in the Inland Empire, but what kind of feel does it have? Is it more, urban, suburban, rural? What does the population look like? Just a general type of feel.
Yeah. The IE is my home, so I have nothing but love for it. It is definitely suburban though, but it's not far from LA and Orange County, which are bigger cities. I would say it's like a 40 to 60-minute drive, depending on traffic. There's also Big Bear, so there's the mountains if you want somewhere more rural. I guess it's not really rural up there, but and then there's Palm Springs, which is only like an hour out. Um, I love that there's never any parking issues out in the Inland Empire. There's lots of good food and it's a very diverse patient population. So I love it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I feel like you were the perfect person to ask that question too, because you've experienced it for like 20 plus years. Okay, so just a couple concluding questions. First one, pretty quick and easy, but how can we learn more about your program? Are you guys present on social media? I'm sure you have a website, but how can we stay connected?
We do have an Instagram. We don't post on it a ton, but that would definitely be a way to get more information.
Okay, awesome. And the last two questions are really just picking your brain. So the first one is, what advice do you have for medical students who are interested in dermatology?
I would say that aways are important because it's a really good way to see if like you're a good fit for a certain program. So I would say to kind of choose a ways really thoughtfully based on like I really want to go here and I think it's going to be a great fit and then doing the way can just help confirm that or not. And then the other thing I would say is like number of like projects or publications is like super important, as is like the relationships that you develop during those projects. So I would say it's important to have follow through, to have good communication, and to try your best to finish whatever projects that you've started, because that's a really good way for a mentor to be able to have like a great letter of rec for you and be able to really kind of endorse you as a candidate. So those are kind of two things that I would emphasize for candidates.
Okay. Last question is, what advice do you have for medical students in choosing a residency program?
So I would say fit is so important. I know that geography can play a role. Like, for example, my husband had matched at Riverside Community Hospital, and thank goodness, like Loma Linda ended up being a perfect fit for me. But I mean, there are other programs in the geographic region, and so I think that you're going to be there for 3 years, and it's important that like you go somewhere where you have like common goals and common interest. Like if research is something that's really important for you, then I would be like good to go somewhere where that's also their goal. But if like your goal is more education and being a good clinician, then I would focus on more clinical heavy programs. So, I think that should kind of be a priority for people.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for the advice. And we know that you're a very busy resident. So thank you so much for spending an hour of your day with us and prepping and having all the questions ready and everything. It really means a lot to us. And it's very valuable. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video with anyone interested in dermatology or Loma Linda in particular. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.